It feels like all of the discussion around Crazy Taxi World Tour has been extremely focused on their use of AI in developing the game. And I talked to someone. I saw a presentation with the original creator of Crazy Taxi giving the presentation. And it's like, it's cool. It's a good vibes project. You're like, wow, the original creator has returned to create a brand new game in such a beloved franchise. And wow, they got the Offspring song. And oh, they got some Bad Religion in there too. And wow, they recreated the city from the first Crazy Taxi, and they're expanding it in some interesting ways. And and it's like, it should be a good vibes project, and you have to wonder if it's worth it for them to have sullied a lot of that and turned a lot of the discussion into their use of AI, which I spoke with someone affiliated with the game kind of after the presentation, and I asked him, I kind of said, like, like, what's, I saw the statement that Game Informer got and all that. And he said, it's not in the game. It's just stuff that, is kind of used, in the background, and it's not stuff that's actually like making its way into the game. It's stuff that they used, like outside of the game. And I feel like that's become, or starting to become, some of the go-to phrasing for companies when they want to try to like wiggle around some of the AI disclosure stuff. And I said, for some people, that's just not going to be enough. And you have to wonder, is it worth it? I wonder how much time they saved, or what benefit they got from using those tools. Does it seem worth it at this point for like so much of the discussion around the game they just announced to be focused on that? And I think that's I don't know how to calculate that. Like, it feels like that the vast majority of discussion I see around the game are from people saying they're never going to touch it. And I'm sure that there's a much wider world out there where none of this information ever even reaches them to begin with. And, I don't think this is something that necessarily damns the sales of a game or anything. Like the average public is just not that informed. But here we are. Again, an announcement of a, it's very, I've got some footage here that we'll take a look at, and it's a Crazy Taxi game. They're making a new Crazy Taxi game, which I think is weird in a lot of ways, and is neat in a lot of ways. And that should have been in that. Like, this discussion could have been around the question I have about it, which is like, I wonder how much this is going to cost. I wonder if this will be a full price game. Which I don't mean to sound as damning as it does, but again, we'll get into it. They sent 6 minutes of footage and and they said use 4 minutes of it. So we'll skip around a little bit here. Let's check it out. All right. So as you can see here, I mean, like, they made a Crazy Taxi game. You got your drive and reverse on the screen. You've got a fat arrow. You've got circles where people can be picked up. I watched someone play it in front of me, and they were doing, like, you'll see some combo stuff build up in the lower right that'll say like Crazy Drift, and so it feels like, or like from watching the footage and watching them play it, it seems like, I should say, that the moves from Crazy Taxi are in it. You might not even, some people I feel like don't even know, there's like arcane button combos you can put in to do limiter cuts and different dashes, and you see on the screen now they've got just straight up nitro, but it looks like a lot of that stuff is still there. They've built some modes into the game that seem to be designed to train you for that. If you watch the trailer, there's a fishing thing in there. And so they showed us a fishing mini game where you have to do a crazy stop which is a specific way of stopping, in a specified area. And then the guy casts his line. When you stop, he casts. And then after that, he hooks a fish, and you have to backdash over and over again on a cycle, like matching a meter to do it at the right timing. and that will determine, I think, how big of a fish he catches. And so that's just kind of like one example of a mini game. It reminded me of the Crazy Box, if you remember that, from the Dreamcast versions of Crazy Taxi. They tried to expand upon the arcade game by going like, I don't know, let's make a bunch of leaderboard focused weird stuff. And so they made like, oh, can you jump a certain distance? Can you do this? And you know, Crazy Box is a similar concept of like, you need to know how to play Crazy Taxi the right way to excel at those modes. The game just didn't do a good job of teaching you how to do that. I saw some on-screen button prompts in the fishing mini game specifically that seemed like, okay, this is going to teach you how to do a backdash. And you're going to need to know that if you want to play Crazy Taxi. I think it's insane that they're putting that stuff in there. It's like it's the right idea, I guess, because they're just making Crazy Taxi again, but it looks better, and then adding a story mode and all this other stuff. But like the core of it is that. And so it makes sense that they would maintain all of that. But I always found that specific aspect of Crazy Taxi, especially in arcades where you're shifting into drive over and over again, and like the things you have to do always felt a little too weird for me, I guess. And so it seems like they're maintaining that. Let's take a look at some of the footage. There's a crazy backdash, a crazy backspin turn. So, there's ways to do that.
Hey, Cab! Thanks for coming, Axel. Our delivery guy's on vacation right now. Could you help with some deliveries?
They're calling it World Tour because there will be 5 different cities on 5 different continents throughout the game. They also have time of day, so you'll have like nighttime versions of this. And here's something a little different from the average Crazy Taxi pickup. Go and deliver the pizzas. And they've got straight up mission objectives, which I think makes sense. They sent a note. I imagine that the footage doesn't reflect this, but they sent a note saying not to mention any specific brands or businesses that you may have seen in the footage. What I don't think is in this footage, but it might have been in the build that they showed us. And which, says to me that they are trying to lock down brands to put in it, but that maybe those deals are not done yet. So I assume that you will eventually have, I don't know, like maybe this will be a Pizza Hut by the time they're done. That would make sense, right? That's what it was originally. Can Pizza Hut afford to...
You're the fastest driver I know. Pizza's always better when it's hot and fresh out of the oven.
Dude, your pizza is insane. It's gotta be the best in the world.
Huh. Overseas expansion. Might be something to look into.
So I'm guessing that means you'll do 1 pizza mission per locale, right? There's a very funny... I'm going to pause this real quick. There was a very funny moment, which I again, this is the right move for the game, and they're doing the right thing, but just something about the sentence I'm looking at the wrong camera. Something about the sentence that made me lose my mind. And they're like, yeah, so, we're going to have this story mode, this World Tour story mode. You're really going to dig into Axel's backstory and the lore of Crazy Taxi. Just like, I'm sitting in the back of the room going like, this guy just talked about the lore of Crazy Taxi. I'm losing my mind. The only lore Crazy Taxi has been the writing in Crazy Taxi Tycoon, the incremental game they put out. That's the only game that has had any like serious writing, right? I'm trying to think if Crazy Taxi 3 had anything in it. Anyway, let's so yeah, nighttime. And this appears to be the story mode. Like, there is a straight up arcade mode in the game that still has a timer in the upper left, and you're playing it like it was the arcade game. And that's most of what they played for us during the presentation. I think the main question I've had about Crazy Taxi all along. See, he's like doing these limiter cuts the entire time as he's driving, and is that something you really want to... Like, I don't know. Like, the specific weird things you do to make your taxi turn and drive fast in this game always felt really awkward to me. So I'm hoping that the inputs are, like, simplified maybe isn't the word, but just like, I don't know, we have more buttons on a controller now. Like, you don't need to do it exactly the same way the arcade version was.
You made a name for yourself worldwide.
Hey, you're that ex-pilot.
How about it? You up for a rematch? Show me that world-class skill of yours?
So the what they showed was go around, pick up passengers, deliver them, keep going. You know, it's a recreation of the original, you know, San Francisco looking city from the first game, and which they just referred to it as West Coast. They didn't actually specifically say San Francisco or anything like that, but you know, so we've got a race here. Let's skip ahead a little bit. So I've always liked Crazy Taxi. But you know, when you talk about Crazy Taxi and you talk about the Dreamcast, like, I feel like a lot of the conversation becomes about how the value proposition of arcade ports coming home, and how that was something that Sega had to deal with a lot in that era, and Midway as well. You know, like arcade companies and stuff had to kind of contend with that a lot, and that's that always seemed limiting when it comes to continuing the Crazy Taxi franchise. Crazy Taxi 2, you know, had more stuff in it, but I don't know that they ever really solved that problem. Crazy Taxi 3, I never really did it for me to begin with. And so, you know, the big question I had going into this was, like, what are they going to do to expand this in a way that makes it seem like a video game, a modern video game, I should say, that is going to, you know, you're not going to come away from it going like, oh, why did I pay more than $15, you know, $20, whatever. And the World Tour seems to be their answer for that, right? Is you're going to go from city to city, you're going to take on all these different missions. There seem to be adding a lot of mission variety to that is way beyond just, you know, delivering fares from place to place. And I'm very curious to see how that pans out, because that could be cool, or it could be, you know, hey, you're kind of just doing the same type of stuff over and over again. But, you know, like, driving games are so weird now. Like, we don't really get a lot of non-racing games, you know, like so having something like this that is, you know, a mission-based driving game and setting you in an open world of sorts, not the largest open world, but 5 different areas, I suppose, and giving you missions to complete for stars and move on, and, you know, like, that begins to feel like a more full-fledged experience. I'm not sure I am 100% sold on it based on what they've shown so far. As far as, like, are they going to be providing enough value for the money or whatever? But, you know, we don't know the retail price at this point either, so it's kind of hard to make too many judgment calls about that. But I feel like, for me, this entire project kind of hangs on that, because you look at it and go like, that's cool, man, they made Crazy Taxi and it looks nicer now, and they added some moves, and you got nitrous, and you got, you know, like, the core of it is feels like it's largely intact. But, you know, like how much game is there going to be in this game, and is there going to be enough variety to keep you going all the way through? Or, you know, is it going to be, hey, each one of these 5 areas has one pizza mission, and one of these, and 2 of these, and this and that, and we've got a little bit of story in there, but the voice acting's kind of kooky, so, you know, it's not like it's going to... I think there's, I guess, potential pitfalls that they could fall into with this that are bigger, I think, than the AI conversation. I think the AI conversation is one of those unforced errors where you're just like, didn't you? I don't know. It's not like people have been. I guess maybe more recently people have been more vocally less receptive to that or something in a way that maybe some of these studios are noticing. I feel like a lot of studios out of Asia maybe don't quite understand the negative sentiment around AI in the West, and so they're being a little bit more cavalier with it. Whereas here, well, I don't know. Here we'll see, right? I mean, Call of Duty has like a very blatant AI disclosure on that page. And I think they're going so far as to say like, yeah, there's some in-game assets that were made, but they were, at least partially made with AI. Whereas on this, they're being very like, it's nothing that's in the game, nothing that you're going to see has been generated by AI and what have you. And so, reading between the lines a little bit, it almost feels like that some studios are in a bit of a testing phase with this sort of stuff. And games like this weren't necessarily made with AI in mind, and we're going to make this big AI thing. It feels more like, these tools are available, we're going to try it out. And they maybe used it during some form of pre-production, and they claim it's not going to make it into the final game, and what have you. And so they're kind of kicking the tires on this stuff to see if it's helping them or not. And so I wonder if the door will shut on that eventually. Or open wide, like if studios like this come back and go like, actually the AI was a huge help to us, and maybe they will get hooked on it and want to keep using it. I don't know. I suspect, based on talking to a lot of other studios that have dabbled in AI, not necessarily in specific game projects, but like, hey, we need to know if this is something that is actually a good tool for us to use, to kind of vetting it and trying to figure out if this is something that can actually assist in game development in a way that helps them make games. Largely the answer that I've gotten back from people who have been, fairly responsible for, testing that AI, integrating that AI, figuring it out if it's going to work. The response I've gotten back more often than not has been like, no, not really. No, I mean, maybe there's something it's useful for, but nothing. It's not some big savior. It's not some massive. It's not saving us time on pre-pro. It's not doing that. Each individual studio's mileage is going to vary on that stuff. But I have not. What has not happened is I have not encountered a single person working in video games that has said, "Oh, this stuff is awesome. I can't believe we can do this now. These tools are so good." I have not seen anyone actually working on like close to game development on a game, assets generation, like nothing like that. It's been like, yeah, I don't know, man, it reads my email for me, it's been stupid stuff like that that people have been like, that's actually useful because it filters my email or whatever, okay. I mean, I guess I get too many emails as well, so who knows. But as far as like in-game stuff, like it just feels like that stuff hasn't been useful. So again, I without knowing precisely how they used it and whatever, really only kind of going by the statements that they've given, you have to wonder. The person I spoke with did not seem like remorseful is not the word, but like he did not seem to acknowledge like, yeah, we could have dodged this. like we could have maybe avoided this. It was more just like, yeah, this was used here. It's not in the final game. It's a done deal. It's like whatever. It was a little more like, we're not using it in the game, but we have to disclose that at some point we were fucking around with it or whatever. And so I don't know. I don't know how that does not really calm anything. It doesn't really calm much on my end in terms of like the sentiment around that stuff, I suppose. Each individual person's going to kind of make their own distinction there, I guess. But I feel like that's been the sentiment even after they issued statements about the AI stuff. No one's been like, oh, great, okay, well, that's awesome then. Check, okay, well, let me just scratch this out. Everything's fine. Like that is very much not been the case. So I'm curious to see how studios continue to navigate that stuff. Again, it seems like a pretty unforced error, because if they used it for stuff at some point and none of that is making it into the final game, how useful could it have really been? Did you just like replace a concept artist at some point? And then I just, you know, I don't know. It's weird. It's weird. Anyway, that's Crazy Taxi World Tour. I think it's neat that they're making a new Crazy Taxi game. I think it's weird that they're making a new Crazy Taxi game that is as faithful as this seems to be to the original game. I feel like a lot of the conversations we would have about like, oh, what would, you know, like the chat or whatever, the comments on YouTube videos, like everyone would always leap to the kind of obvious, like, oh, well, if you're making a new Crazy Taxi in this day and age, you are making a game about rideshare services and driverless cars and fighting against them or whatever. And we'll see, maybe the World Tour story ends up being about that. There is I forget the name of it now, but there is an indie game that is kind of a Crazy Taxi like, that is telling that story, that seems very focused on that story, like you're the last human cab around or whatever. So, you know, someone's out there doing that, but I feel like that's like you're telling a John Henry style story or whatever, right? You know, you're that Axel is the last man standing and or BD Joe, and kind of going from there. It looks neat. It's definitely like a smooth running game. It feels like they checked the boxes they needed to check for making a new Crazy Taxi. They went and got the songs. They kept alluding to, I think the Q&A session I was in, a lot of people kept asking about music, which I don't. If you're making that game, if you made that game originally and the people are just asking you about like what's going to be on the soundtrack, are you like minorly offended? You're just like, what? We got the fucking Offspring song. Like yeah, of course we did. We got the, yes. I'm not going to tell you the whole soundtrack right now because that's still, you know, like we're still figuring it out or whatever. They weren't ready to announce what other music stuff they were working on. But like so many people just asked about music and just like, yeah, the game. But yeah, anyway, is there going to be any hip hop on the soundtrack? And like, wow, what are we doing? There's no way they know that right now, or if they do, they're not ready to announce it. Like clearly, but you know, hey, that's definitely one. It still is one of the better, more informed Q&A, public Q&As I was in during the course of Summer Game Fest. Some real boneheaded questions, but hey. It's life in the big city. Crazy Taxi World Tour is coming out next year. It's interesting. I think it's also interesting from an angle of like Sega is willing to make this, and Sega is willing to make a fairly faithful, recreation of Crazy Taxi with a blown out, expanded story that, you know, ideally is the hook for the thing. But you know, most of what we showed most of what we saw was arcade mode, and then you see some of these some of these story style missions in the footage I just showed, but we haven't really seen too much out of that just yet. So that's kind of up to them to show it as the game worms its way through development, I suppose. So we'll see what they have to say next. And that's it for me on Crazy Taxi World Tour. Go to jeff.zone for more information about life and how you should be living it.